was a report today that Jaylen Polk will have to have season-ending shoulder surgery. Can you add anything to that?
No. I don't know, other than I'd like to find out where some of these come from. You know, some of these rats around here, so we'll figure that out.
Welcome in. It is Foxborough Rush, and the new sentiment in Foxborough, it just goes on. Annabelle, Hasselbeck, Jade, McCarthy here with you. Episode of Foxborough Rush. And AB, I know you're laughing a little bit, but it's the truth of the matter. Like, if you're a rat in Mike Vrabel's kitchen, get out. He doesn't want anything to do with you. Needless to say, I think he was more riled up about that than anything else after the Patriots were just dismantled by the New York Football Giants at MetLife last night, 42-10, the final score. Look, this was the 2s and 3s out there, but Vrabel certainly seemed a little bit more fired up about the so-called rats, and that all stemmed from a report by Jordan Schultz that Jaylen Polk will, ultimately, it looks to be headed to the IR because of season-ending shoulder surgery. That was the report that, he's had multiple, doctors and seen multiple specialists about this, and that was deemed to be the best-case scenario for the Patriots 2024, second-round pick here. So, rats, just be ready.
Careful. Be known. And, I know the movie Ratatouille ends on a high note and it's Disney and it's, all things are great, but that's not what's going to happen with whoever that rat is in Foxborough. Vrabel was clearly upset about that. But, that's what also happens when you have a new coaching staff, a new regime. The protocol is something that you have to figure out. And two, I can just imagine that whatever happened and whoever it was, it's not going to happen another time. Just like the rookies try not to make the same mistake twice. This will not happen again. But no, in all seriousness, definitely a bummer for Polk and just the expectation that we had for him this season, but also probably himself, right? Like last year did not go how he wanted. And for it to end the way that it did is definitely a disappointment, but definitely allows some clarity for the Patriots going forward.
We'll see what it's going to mean for obviously our challenged wide receiver group, and the hope was that he was going to be able to boost from where he ended a season ago, right? 12 catches, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns in his rookie year. Again, nothing officially announced by the Patriots on this one at this point in time. We'll continue to keep tabs for you right here on Foxborough Rush. But look, the reality is this wide receiver room, it doesn't have a lot of depth to it, AB. We're all kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with Steph Diggs. He sort of was like, we'll see if we'll be ready for week 1, in that interview with Diana Rossini on Scoop City. And we heard Vrabel kind of go, look, he's doing everything that he can. We've heard that echoed from Patriots brass throughout the course, of this training camp and into the preseason, that Steph Diggs is ahead of where they thought he was going to be, and he is doing the very best that he can to get back out there. I don't think anyone is going to have a real clear picture of what the Patriots have in that number 1 wide receiver in Steph Diggs, quite honestly, until they're on the field against the Las Vegas Raiders.
No, and probably even longer than that, right? Because it also takes time to build chemistry in those in-game situations when you're really thrown to the fire. And I think that's what we're going to have to wait and see. Also, you mentioned it, how Diggs was kind of play that game. It was kind of like entertainment almost. It was like a real talk show. It really felt like we were trying to get the tea out of him, and he didn't want to say it. So when he returns, we'll see. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who that number 1 wide receiver is. My guess would be Pop Douglas, based off of his performance in training camp and in the preseason, and just based off of last year, hopefully to build off of that chemistry with Drake May. But you did see Drake May light up whenever he got the opportunity to talk about Diggs. He said he brought more swagger into the huddle, and it just brought a different vibe. And so you hope that truly carries over. Does it compare to the aura that we saw yesterday with the New York Giants and how that was really just the entire storyline of the game, I don't know. But I think just going back to Polk as well, thinking about his situation and really just the devastating injury that was for him. He comes into a team last year that really struggled offensively as an entire team. And then this year, not even getting to play week 1, right? So I think when you look at his situation, he's still a very young player. He had high potential, played amazing in college, was a high draft pick for the New England Patriots. And hopefully the Patriots have a great season and that will look better come next season.
Yeah, look, I mean, that at this point for him, you feel for the kid as a person, right? Because that's a difficult road to walk. I mean, you came into, as you said, an anemic offense at best last season, AB. Like, there is no discussion or contention or any question about that. That's just what it was. The offensive line was woeful. You obviously had a very young quarterback in Drake May, who was trying to find his footing, mostly running for his life. And you had a very depleted, target for him across the field. So that's a tough space for any receiver to walk into. And then to be dealt this blow with, as we said, a reported season-ending injury, sustained during that game against the Washington Commanders. You feel for him as a person and for what that's going to mean for his future, and where and how that future is going to progress is something that none of us really know at this point in time. But it is certainly going to have an impact on what the Patriots have to do and what Mike Vrabel and his staff are weighing as they get set for Tuesday, because the reality is that is cut down day across the National Football League. Rosters have to get to 53 men. And Mike Vrabel spoke a little bit about it today. It's something that the Patriots have already begun working on. And it is a little bit of separating that personal and that professional. And Mike Vrabel spoke about making those professional moves on a day like today as they get set for Tuesday.
In and out.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
In and out. I guess it is close to good afternoon. I appreciate you guys that made the trip or stayed last night being here this morning. First, before we start, Ellie and I spoke with the following players this morning and told them our intentions to make a transaction to get down here closer to our number. We spoke with R.J. Moten, Mekhi Bernard, Phil Lutz, Kyle Pecco, Cole Fotheringham, Shane Watts, Philip Liddy, Ben Woolridge, Jordan Polk, Monty Rice, City So, Gene Bell, Isaiah Bolden, and Tyrese Robinson. So, tough day. Again, we've talked about this, try to have a personal side to this and a professional side, and this is clearly the professional side of what we have to do. 31 other teams are going to do the same thing between now and Tuesday. So again, just try to do it as respectfully as possible, and continue to function.
I think you can see it there, AB. Look, Mike Vrabel has a tough persona, right? I mean, we have seen him get bloodied at camp. He's always in there in the middle of a scrum. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. I've kind of likened him to the Lions head coach and Dan Campbell here on Foxborough Rush before. Like, they just have a little bit of that same grit and same toughness. But I think listening to him there today, you get the sense of, yeah, this is tough. And this is a tough time around the National Football League because all these players and all these people, come out and they put forth their very best during training camp, and they hope that they're showcasing their very best and what they can do and contribute to a team, here in New England. And ultimately, they're all not going to be here. That's just the reality of this league. And I think when you see Vrabel there, you get a sense of, yeah, this is about so much more than the toughness that he showcases, on a more day-to-day basis. These coaches, they connect with all these guys. That's part and parcel to the job. You're not going to get the best out of a player if you don't connect with him personally. So that's something that I think we don't often get to see, but is a reality, in 32 teams all across this country.
And I think it's rare. I think it's a great point that you bring up, because it's rare to have a coach who can be so hard-nosed, who can jump into the fire, into the trenches with his players, and really aggressive, even at the podium, calling out reporters the way that he does and setting the standard that he does, but also have that human side to him. I mean, you look at the names at the bottom of the screen. That's a lot of guys to have a really tough day today, right? And so I think that he knows that. He's been through it as a player. He understands the weight. Even if you're a guy that has a stable position and you're a lock for this team, it still weighs on you. You still feel that burden for those players, because what's next to follow. These players might not be on the Patriots right now, but they're hoping, hey, I hope I'm on another team, come tomorrow, whatever the time is. And so, I think it's a great point that you bring up with just Vrabel's humanity in the situation. I think that also is what's going to take them far as a program, right? He needs to be able to connect with his players on and off the field and build that trust. And like we're seeing right now, he's picked up guys on this Patriots team that he knew in Tennessee, right? So there are a lot of connections that he might end up with these guys again sometime in his career.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions remaining about what this 53-man roster is going to look like. And we'll hear a little bit more from Vrabel coming up a little bit later here on Foxborough Rush, sort of alluding to that. Obviously, there's still time for moves to be made. There's still cuts that have to happen. But there's also a chance, to claim players, and obviously for trades and some different things. There's also been a number of trades in the last 24 hours across the National Football League, and we'll talk about that coming up as well. When you think about this preseason as a whole, now that, you put the bow on it, obviously, and start to turn the page and figure out what your program is going to look like going into week one, what's the lasting moment for you in this first preseason under Mike Vrabel, AB?
I mean, no doubt, it's TreVeyon Henderson's run to open up this season, to kick it off end zone to end zone. That was just so encouraging, and I think life-giving for this fan base, for the Patriot Nation. I remember feeling like the Patriots are back, and that's all I saw on social media after that. So I think for me, that was this definitely standout moment when I think about this preseason. I think about this summer leading up to this new regime for the New England Patriots. It's got to be TreVeyon Henderson, and the pinpoint moment is that end zone to end zone home run to really kick it off. But I also think if I had to pick one other thing, maybe a little different, that people will definitely remember, is Vrabel getting in the mix at that joint practice. I mean, you think about the joint practice, the hype that surrounds it, and then you just get these reports and these clips and this, the look of Vrabel coming out of the fire with a bloody cheek. It was probably a scratch. Honestly, it's probably a scratch. Yeah. But I think the storyline of that, and paired with and followed by TreVeyon's boom, right out of the gates touchdown. What an awesome moment for Patriots fans, for the organization, and just for people to really unite and rally behind, and also go back to. The performance that we saw last night against the Giants, that was tough, offensively specifically. But we can go back to and hang our hat on, hey, but you know what we did see? We did see explosiveness. We did see a burst of energy. We did see an aggressive competitiveness right out the gate from our ones. So excited about that for sure.
Yeah, I would add a couple things. I mean, I totally wholeheartedly agree. TreVeyon Henderson to the house, that was a standout moment, and it had everybody excited. Vrabel, with the bloody cheek, I think that's indicative of the overall picture out of this training camp for me, which is, this is his team. And it's really just a continuation of what we saw start in mini camp, with effort and finish. And that's what he wants to see from his team. And he wants to see it day in and day out, whether it's in a meeting, in a walkthrough, at practice, in a game, all of the above. That is what he expects from every player on this team, and from every coach on this team, and from every person who is associated with the New England Patriots. He wants to see effort, and he wants to see finish. And I think he has carried that through, and he's laying the foundation for the personality of this team. And we all know authentic leadership has to start with who you are as a person. And that means it's going to be a reflection of who Mike Vrabel is, on a day-to-day basis. And look, I think we saw that, after this Giants game last night with his, I'd like to get these rats out of here. Like, it's just a continuation of the same thing because he wants things done the way he wants things done. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, and on the field too. Like, he's calling out the rats at the podium, but he's also taking initiative in game to go up to players like Keon White and show them film or, talk to them after play. But then also Ben Woldridge, and Jeremiah Webb, who Ben just got cut today. So I think that also shows his character of like, I'm going to coach you regardless of if you're going to be my number one guy to lead my defense or if you're going to be a guy that will not be here tomorrow. And I think that's something that I loved.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we see that with the best coaches because ultimately they're teachers and they'll tell you that, I do this because I want to teach, because I want to lead, because I want to have this connection, with young people. And I think we're seeing all the signs of that, from Mike Vrabel as he has made this team his own. The other moment that stands out to me, and again, I think is also a reflection of Vrabel, is the first round pick in Will Campbell, and him being like, that's on me and I messed that up and I need to get better. And just the way he approaches things. And we see the same thing, from Henderson. It's just that humility and groundedness and attention to detail and willingness to learn and to get better and to grow. And I think that is so significant in the foundation for this team because the reality is yes, the Patriots did a lot, but there's still a lot more work to be done, AB.
It is. And it's unrealistic too for a player to be perfect, right? And it's actually better to make mistakes in the preseason like he did. And there's a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations on Will Campbell. And he did an awesome job with it. Not only, yes, how he carried himself and respecting his elders and the veterans on the team and repeatedly saying, I know I'm a rookie. I think there was one quote that he recently said about, we might be playing a bad team, but bad teams still have Pro Bowl players. Like, that's a really wise and mature thing to say, knowing that you're never off, right? Like Drake May even said it last night, you're never off. Like, you're always on and every rep really matters. And so I think it's been a total home run from Will Campbell from what we've seen so far, in the sense of it's obviously not perfect because it's not going to be, but he's going to do everything he can to grow. And just being with the people around him, I think that coachable perspective is something that not every player has. And it's, it's a hit or miss if you get them in the draft and they're like that or not, right? Like, yes, you can talk to coaches and you can meet with the player beforehand, but really you don't know how they're going to react to your situation. So yeah, a lot of pressure on Will Campbell, but the best thing an offensive lineman can do is not have a lot of talk be going around him. And right now it's all good things for Will Campbell. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's a reason that they do all the digging and all the intelligence when they draft these guys, especially when you're talking about these, top draft picks, because they want to have the greatest sense of who they are as people before they walk in to your locker room and become a foundational piece of your team. And the reality is, if you're taking somebody where the Patriots took Will Campbell, he better be a hit. You can't afford in this league to miss on those high draft picks. You just can't. And so that's why they do as much as they do to get set for the draft. But I do think that, for the Patriots, you can't have asked Will Campbell to come in a better way than he has at this point in time. And we still have to ask for patience, and we still have to recognize that practice makes progress and practice does not make perfection. But I think what's really key is that he recognizes that and he's willing to put in the work to move that progress along as quickly as it can. All right, we got to move along here. We got to take a quick break, but much more to come. As I said, busy day of trades in the National Football League. We'll talk about that. Plus, what could we expect from New England? We'll hear from Mike Vrabel, maybe a little bit of a glimpse as to what the next few days could look like in Foxborough. Stay with us. More Foxborough Rush right after this. Welcome back into Foxborough Rush. Look, it's not the trade deadline, but there's certainly been some action across the National Football League in the past 24 hours with some moving parts. The latest one probably coming out of Washington, and no, it doesn't involve Terry McLaurin, who we all know has asked for a trade, but conversations ongoing there. No one's quite sure the way that is going to go, but they do, in fact, make a trade when it comes to their running back, Brian Robinson, as they send him to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2026 sixth-round pick, that according to Adam Schefter. And AB, this one just seemed like we all knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when it was coming because Robinson didn't play, in their preseason game on Monday night. They decided to sit him, and it just seemed to be indicative of the fact that, well, the team feels like they have depth at wide receiver, and they were ready to move on from him and see what they could get in exchange for him. And obviously, this seemed to do the trick for them when it comes to the sixth rounder in next year's draft with San Francisco.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, we were talking about him in our fantasy leagues for the Commanders just a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the Patriots as well, and him being, the guy potentially for them. And it just shows you how quick things can change for you. I mean, now he's over there with Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be the guy, right? So that's just how the NFL works, and it's pretty wild. But, it is interesting because this is the Commanders and the McLaurin situation to see, what does that free up for the Commanders? In what way does that impact them? Maybe there's more movement now. Very interesting to see. But just with these cuts, I mean, even before, the big cut down, we have to get to 53-man roster, there's going to be a lot of movement in these next couple hours. And regardless of, the Patriots that got cut today, you might not be on the Patriots right now, but hopefully you're on another roster very soon.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of these other deals that have gone down in the last 24 hours across the National Football League. You can obviously see the Chiefs decided to trade their wide receiver Sky Moore in a seventh to the 49ers for a sixth. So San Francisco has been very active in the last 24 hours. The Broncos, they move their wide receiver Javon to the Saints. Saints obviously were looking for more of a big-bodied receiver. They give up a fourth and a seventh to bring Vele in. The Vikings trade their D tackle Harrison Phillips in a seventh to the Jets for 2 sixth-rounders. And then the Browns, they trade their D tackle Jawan Briggs and a seventh also to the Jets. So look, I mean, we don't typically get this kind of action this time of year, AB. It was a little interesting to sit there yesterday and, I would pop open my Twitter feed and be like, oh, Schefter's got a big day going on here. Like, he is busy.
We got to find out how he does it, man.
Right?
I want to know what he's on. What's your Starbucks order?
I have sat there doing shows with him, and I kid you not, when you are not having direct conversation engaged with him, can you see it? This is what he's doing because he is constantly on his phone and he does an exceptional job. I always enjoyed working with Shefty. But the reality is he had a busy day yesterday and it's not necessarily typical this time of year.
No, but the reality is that if a player is getting cut right now, they probably knew that, hey, we don't have a roster spot for you and we want to make something out of it. Like, we want to get you out of this or just lower our salary cap, right? And, it is interesting to see the 49ers be very active in those moves. But these teams want to make use of what's going to happen. And you have these holdouts that are going on. Like, they also need to put themselves in positions to be ready if there is movement to capitalize on.
Yeah, and you mentioned the holdouts, right? I mean, there's obviously the McLaurin situation that we mentioned in Washington with the Commanders, and are they going to be able to find a way to sign, McLaurin, and they have not been able to come to terms on the money from all reports, and the age obviously seems to be the sticking point. Same draft as DK Metcalf, likely wants DK Metcalf money. That's all the talk, if you will. And the Commanders haven't been willing to pay it because he is older than DK Metcalf. I think it's going to be fascinating to see if they can get something done. At this point, it just continues to go on. And we've seen it many times before. Guys who say, I want to trade, I want out, and then they eventually get the contract, all is forgiven, and they go on to have a very bright future with the team that they were really incensed with and frustrated with for a duration of time. Obviously, that case is very similar when it comes to Dallas and what's going to happen with Micah Parsons. And this is sort of their MO, and Jerry Jones was on again talking about, well, we don't talk to agents. And Micah, for his part, is sitting there going, I'm not talking to you. You're going to talk to my agent. But they tend to drag things out. But we're getting to the point where it's August 22nd. Like the preseason is almost wrapped up at this point. Obviously, there's some games, tonight and going into the weekend, but we're almost at the point where we're getting ready for week 1, and coaches are going to start game planning for what that is going to look like. And in Cincinnati, there remains the situation there as well. So I think it is going to be very curious to see over these next 2 weeks, really, how these hold-ins shake out, if you will.
No, and even just to what extent and when the players on their teams will speak up, right? Because if you have Dak and you have Joe Burrow saying something and making a case for your player that's in that hold out or hold in, they're gonna take that to heart, right? Like that's your quarterback, that's your starting quarterback. And so I think it'll be interesting to see when they start opening their mouths, maybe not just internally, but publicly, because to some extent, like you're here in June, July, August, because you want to win in February, right? Like these teams are doing everything they can to win, and you want your best players on the field. So I can imagine that the starting quarterbacks are probably going to start speaking up at some point. But I think, we're in circling into this Patriots specifically, we saw what happened last night against the Giants. Our 2s and our 3s, nowhere compared to the Giants 2s and 3s, right? We made their team look like all pros, okay? This was the New York Giants. And so I think the Patriots are going to look at this and they have to say, hey, how can we get creative? Do we need more pass rush? Is this something we can go for? I mean, they have the most cap space in the NFL. And if they're able to capitalize on that, the crafts. The reason they went out and got Vrabel and this new regime and McDaniels is because they want to win, but they want to win now. And I think that will be the deciding factor with these teams. Do you want to win now, or are you just going to play the long game and see how it plays out?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 numbers from last night against the Giants. And look, it was a 3rd preseason game. As you said, it was the 2s and 3s out there. So there's not a lot to dwell on, and I don't want to shine a microscope on it. But look, when you're allowing nearly 7 yards per play to the Giants, and when you're giving up 431 yards of offense and 5 combined passing touchdowns, and you have under 200 yards of offense, those are not numbers that you want associated with your team. Like,
no, it's concerning.
There's no way that there's no way that Kraft, or anyone was happy seeing that. But I do think it is a question of what they're going to be willing to do, what they may or may not want to give up. And also this sense of there is no way to completely rebuild an entire roster in one season. This was a 4-win team last year, and in a very different place from a losing team that Mike Vrabel took over in Tennessee. So you have draft classes where there were just misses that you're going to have to make up for. And I mean, of all the executives that I've had conversations with over the years, and AB, I'm sure you've heard this same exact thing. It's like, you have to build your team in those later days of the draft. And by the way, you also can't miss on your, 2nd, 3rd rounders in the draft. Not repeatedly. It's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have done so well, is that they don't have to draft for right now because they have so much depth, because they have drafted well in recent years that they can give guys time to grow and develop and then move into the spot, and then they pay who they pay, they move on from who they don't pay, and like it's already there. And we saw that for a long time in New England, but it went away, and it left us very depleted. Let's put it that way. And so I think the reality is that it's going to take more than 1 year to completely turn around what is the greatest team sport.
And I think I would be a part of the majority here, at least in Patriots Pats Nation, saying that's why we want Efton Chisholm, right? Like he had to have been one of the MVPs from the Patriots preseason. But here's the reality of it, right? Like we might not see him right away, but like that's a guy you want to keep on your roster because he has that grit. You know that if he was playing in that Giants game last night, you would have at least seen some competitive energy out of him, right? And we just really did not see them from the Patriot offense or really defense at all later in the game when everyone who will probably be on the team was not in. And so I think that's a great point because yes, you do need to build this program out for years to come. And that's what we're seeing, but you also want to win now. You saw what the Commanders did last season with Jade Daniels. Like it is possible to win quickly in the NFL if you all buy in. You can avoid serious injuries. And I think that's the difficult thing here is that we saw the depth issues that the Patriots do have. You're not going to get through a season completely healthy. So yes, they might have to go find some guys who other teams are cutting, whose 2s and 3s might be better than the Patriots 2s and 3s right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, Chisholm, I 100% agree. I think he has earned himself a roster spot on this team, and they will find ways, for him to make some contributions, and he will find ways, I think, to take advantage of those opportunities. I think in the short window that we've seen him, he leads us to believe that he is that type of player. And then you have to try to watch him grow and develop him. And that's the other part of this that is so significant is that, these guys don't come into the league just ready to go. They've got to develop. And we've seen Josh McDaniels develop these receivers because we've seen it right here in New England, and working with guys who have similar games to Efton Chisholm and what he's bringing to the table. So I wholeheartedly agree. I expect him to have a spot on the 53-man roster, and then, we'll see what it looks like from there because it will be a little bit of, okay, let's grow, let's develop, let's start here, and then build upon it. But I think that there's a lot of questions that remain, both here in New England as to what exactly the roster is going to look like and then how some of these things shake out. And the one other thing I would mention is you said, when are we going to hear from Dak, when it comes to Micah Parsons, or when are we going to start hearing from some of their teammates? And if you go back a couple weeks, when Micah first showed up and was holding in, he had teammates by his side that basically were like, we're in sync here. Like, he's my dude. I love him. And we're going to stand up for whatever he thinks needs to happen. I wouldn't be surprised, to your point, if we see a little bit more of that in the coming days. But, even CeeDee Lamb was like, come on, we did this last year. We're going to do this again with Micah? Like, pay my dude. Like, just get it done. So we'll see what it looks like. We'll see how it all kind of shakes out. We're going to hear more from Mike Vrabel coming up. As I said, what does the coach have to say as to what this team may look like come next week? We'll hear from the Patriots head man as we continue right here on Foxborough Rush.
Well, again, we're going to continually try to, strengthen the roster every way we can. There's a couple options, right? You can, try to trade for players. You could try to claim some players next week. So, again, we're always going to be trying to strengthen the roster, and that's what we'll try to do here over the course of the next 10 days.
So there's a little bit of coach speak that you're going to hear from any head coach in the National Football League, AB, right? I mean, yeah, you're always going to try to improve the roster. That's the reality, and I think any coach is going to tell you that. But for whatever reason, just the context in which Mike Vrabel was talking about it, I just get the sense, and maybe it was, because it was coming off of a dismantling of the 2s and 3s by the Giants, that they're not done. And they are going to try to move some things around. And, Elliot Wolf talked a little bit about this earlier in the week. A trade always takes 2. You have to find someone who's willing to dance with you, and you have to be able to do the same dance to feel like both people, get the value that they want out of it. But obviously, being able to claim some players on waivers, that's part of this as well. And the Patriots have pretty good positioning because of their 4-win record last season to be able to claim some players. So I expect there to be some shifts when it comes to who is on this final 53 next Tuesday.
Yeah, and Vrabel opened that up by saying, over the next 10 days, well, it's the next day off of that game. And we already saw a countless number of cuts and transactions around the NFL too. And so, yeah, they're going to be quick to make these moves. And it is great in that sense. Yeah, you don't want to have the position that you did winning 4 games last year, but great. Awesome. Helps out for the waivers. So yeah, I think the Patriots have a clear cut sight and plan of where they're going. It helps too. You never want to see players go down, but that does give you clarity. There weren't any egregious injuries last night in last night's game, but even just with Polk, that helps narrow down the wide receiver room and where they need to go and what their needs are. And so it'll be interesting to see really even who from other teams gets cut, what trades get done and what deals don't get done to see if the Patriots can capitalize on those.
Yeah, there is no question that there is a lot going on behind the scenes when it comes to evaluations and when it comes to, trying to determine who gets that, final 1 or 2 on roster spots, which is what I've often heard from executives is, most of them, pretty well. There might be 1, maybe 2 that you really have to weigh and debate. And part of it obviously is this question of, can we hide someone on the practice squad, or has there been too much shown and that's someone that we cannot put on the practice squad because someone else is going to try to, claim that player. So there's all that is part and parcel to this. But needless to say, the Patriots are busy, and so are the other 31 teams across the National Football League as they try to figure out what that 53 is going to look like. One of the players that was talked about last night by Vrabel is Javon Baker. Obviously a 4th-round pick in that 2024 draft. Did get out there last night. There was certainly some question as to if he was even going to be able to do that. He did, but he had 2 misses on the two balls thrown his way. So not the showing that he necessarily wanted as a wide receiver. Also played some special teams, and Mike Vrabel was asked about his contribution, on those special teams. Let's take a listen.
Speaking of special teams, Javon Baker looked like he made some contributions there. In your opinion, I don't know how new that is to him, the special teams thing. Is he good enough in that regard to have a spot on a roster just based on special teams ability alone?
Well, I think you look at the entire body of work, and I think you try to evaluate everything, not just the special teams, but what else can they do? And in Javon's case, he's a wide receiver, and I think the more that he does the special teams, I think the better that he's gotten, and he'll understand how that he can use his play strength, his speed, some of the receiving tools and fundamentals as a gunner potentially. We tried to get him some reps at corner yesterday on a punt return. He's played on the kickoff for us, and those are new, especially for a young player who's played receiver most of his life. So I think that the more that he's done it, the more comfortable that he's gotten, and we'll continue to evaluate him.
Like I said, the evaluations are ongoing this time of year, and it is a busy time. It's going to be interesting to see what direction the Patriots ultimately go here, AB.
Yeah, I think what stuck out to me from just listening to Vrabel there was they have a lot of confidence and trust, and also are just testing out his athletic ability and how quickly he can pick up different roles for this team. And like Vrabel said, yeah, it's not all about special teams. Like, you are a wide receiver, but how can you help us in special teams? And that's really where it's going to come in, because you're not going to put Diggs on special teams, right? You probably won't even have Matt Collins on special teams. I know he was a factor for Buffalo when he was with the Bills on special teams, but maybe not with the Patriots. So who is going to be that guy, right? If you're going to take 6 wide receivers, 5 wide receivers, who is that guy going to be? And Baker, he has to make a case for himself there. He was an impact player on that fumble, on that caused fumble. Could have been a penalty. It was pretty close to that. So thankfully it went his way. But yes, I think as much as it matters, your wide receiver, Vrabel is really looking at, hey, if we're going to take this guy, how can we use him in all facets of the game?
Yeah, and not only that, one, we have to make sure we can use him in all facets of the game. But two, what does it look like to try to have him develop, as someone who can be a more significant weapon as a wide receiver on this team? And some of that's what this is, right? It's coaches trying to project out, what do I think this guy can be, and how long do I think it's going to take for him to get to that point, right? Because we all know that patience comes at a premium in this league as well. So it's a little bit of a dance there in terms of trying to figure out, okay, can he do enough now that it's worth having him on our 53-man roster? And combine that with how long is it going to take us to hopefully have him become what we think he can become. And it's trying to marry those two together, AB. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, because then you also have to just look at the broader picture and say, well, how does he fit in with what else we do have or we don't have?
Right, in the timeline of what we do have, right? We do have Diggs, but when will he be there, and when will he be the guy? We do have Pop, but he's still young. We have Mac, but we haven't seen a lot of him, right? Like Kyle Williams, he's a rookie. So I think it's all exactly what you were saying. Like, when? It's that question of like when, and can you be that guy, and what can you do for us?
Yeah. The special teams thing is always interesting because you have to have players there that can make key contributions on special teams. Oftentimes you want them to be players that you can see develop into having a larger role, on the offense, on other aspects of the game. So he's certainly one to watch as to what the Patriots are going to do with Baker. But I think overall, as we've said, there is work to be done, and they won't be able to remedy everything before Tuesday. That's just the reality of the situation. But clearly they're going to put the work in to see how much they can move just a couple inches, just to get a little bit better in terms of their personnel before the season begins against the Las Vegas Raiders, AB.
Yeah, and I think they're also going to have to lean on the draft and who they already have, because yes, you can go get players, but unless you're going to get those blue chip players like a Micah Parsons or a Trey Hendrickson, I don't think that it's going to feel as significant of a get, right? Because we do have some young talent. I think something that was interesting for me just looking at last night's game was Borregales and the missed kick that he had, because everyone's been talking about this, kicker battle. They're pretty, hand in hand. It seems like, we'll probably take the guy that we drafted, but you missed that kick. Now I think it's more of a discussion. So I think that's interesting. At the end of the day, I do think the Patriots are going to have to lean on who they have, like a guy like Craig Woodson, who really stepped up in preseason as a whole, but also yesterday's game. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the Patriots go, who they go out and find on other teams, and who might have gotten released. But at the end of the day, it's like, what's going to move the needle enough, right? Like, what will really move the needle? There were definitely some pickups in free agency that moved the needle, and the young draft picks, like a Will Campbell, like a Travion Henderson, who was probably way too underrated, and he's going to be the guy for this offense this season. So it'll be interesting to see if the Patriots do grab any significant trades or sign anyone after, this afternoon, who it will be and what impact will they have.
Yeah. No, I mean, and they're definitely in the discussion, I think, because of the cap space that they have. And, and then it becomes are we willing to use some of that? Are we willing to, figure out how to make it work into next year, because it's not always this year that is the challenge, and then beyond that, like, are we willing to give up some potential key components of our future when you don't have the depth that they really do need to have here, and they're just trying to build. So I think those are all considerations and all part of the conversation with Foxborough. All right, we got to take a quick break right here on Foxborough Rush, but we always like to hear from you. So we're going to check out some of your comments when we come back. Stick around. Annabelle Hasselbeck, Jade McCarthy, back with you right after this. Foxborough Rush coming back at you here on Nesson, AB. Jade McCarthy here with you. I just kind of go with AB. It rolls off the tongue. I can't help it.
Hey, I love it. No, hey, I love it. It means we're good friends. I'm all about it.
So let's take a look at some of the mail that we've gotten from our lovely viewers. All right, this one coming from Jay the Supreme 359, right? You got to have that handle. I'm not trading number first round picks, okay, for a 30-plus-year-old guy, Trey Hendrickson. No way. Only guy we should be offering first round picks to is Micah. What say you?
Hey, I think it goes back to what you were just saying in having to build this program, right? Like, this isn't an overnight fix. It's not a 1-year fix. You need guys who you're able to develop. So yeah, like, do we want to give up our first round pick? Probably not. I don't know. Like, man, you'd have to be Superman for that to happen. But Trey Hendrickson is someone who is absolutely loved in Cincinnati. His teammates are all about him. He's a hard worker. He's a developed pass rusher, right? It wasn't like he came out of the gates when he entered the NFL doing what he's doing now. And so I think that gives you confidence with the Patriots to say, hey, who are the guys that we have right now? Can Vrabel turn them into a Trey Hendrickson someday in the future? But I think it's a smart take not to give up a first rounder when you think about developing this team around Drake May and around Will Campbell and Travion Henderson now. And so we'll see how it shakes out. I don't know if Cincinnati wants to give him up. So that at the end of the day, like, that's really where the power is. But he's a guy who's absolutely loved. But yeah, I think you got to weigh less of the age of Trey Hendrickson, more of, hey, what do the Patriots need for the future in years to come?
Yeah. Cincinnati, I mean, year 2 guaranteed money, is the sticking point reportedly in this one. And it just, gosh, it just goes on. It just goes on. Here's another one from Stanley Wallace, 9771. Trey Hendrickson is a 4-time Pro Bowler. Try to get him for Duggar and a first, but that won't work for me if I'm Cincinnati. Get them both. Hendrickson will pressure the quarterback, make the defensive back more productive because they will not have to spend a lot of time on a wide receiver. That was a mouthful, Stanley.
no, hey, Stanley, we love it. Maybe we'll have you on Foxborough Rush at some point. I guess that could be some incentive if you have an amazing mailbag. Maybe you will get an invite to come on with Jade and I at some point, and maybe we'll even make sure Travis is here for you to get the real star of the show on Foxborough Rush. But yeah, I think it's a great point to say that when you bring any elite player, it's going to elevate everyone. It's going to elevate your defense. It's going to make the DB's jobs easier, which is so valid and so true. Will it happen? I don't know. There's a lot that would have to happen for the Patriots to be able to even just get him, but they do have the opportunity. I think that's the interesting part, is like, out of all the teams in the NFL, everyone's saying, oh, maybe we could be entitled to Micah Parsons or Trey Hendrickson or McLaurin. Like, everybody thinks that they can have him, but really the Patriots are the team that probably has the best chance.
Yeah, they certainly do, just because of the amount of cap space that they have. But again, I think it goes back to, when you don't have a lot of depth, how much are you willing to give up on your future picks? And to me, for a Micah Parsons, I think every single team in the National Football League should be lining up saying, I'm willing to take Micah Parsons and put him on my team, because he is a generational type of talent. And obviously, look, I mean, you have to hope that he stays healthy and all of those things, but that's going to be the case with anything. But Micah is the only player in the history of this game to have his name in the same sentence as Reggie White. Reggie White. Like, let's leave it at that. Like, you should be willing to talk to the Cowboys about getting Micah Parsons to New England or any other city other than Dallas. But again, I don't think the Cowboys are actually going to be interested in moving on from Micah Parsons. I just think that this is the way that Jerry Jones likes to do business.
Yeah.
All right, we got more
he
mail.
took a stab at him.
Yeah. He's taken a couple.
a few stabs, man. If I'm Micah Parsons, I'm like, get me out. But yeah, it's just how the NFL goes. It's unfortunately, and you know how the player doesn't have the power in this situation.
Yeah, nope, he doesn't. He's under contract. All right, this from Smells Bad today. I hope it smells better tomorrow. But Drake May and Stephon Diggs will connect on 10 or more touchdowns this season. Book it.
Okay, smells bad today. Would love to know your real name. Hopefully it does smell better tomorrow. But yeah, you know, Diggs has he's only had 10 or more touchdowns twice in his career. So I think it's a lofty thing to say. You would hope, yeah, let's get that connection with Drake May going. Maybe 9 would be more realistic in my opinion. But that's what we want. Like, that's what the Patriots want. They want to have Drake and Diggs be that tandem and for him to be able to be that go-to guy for this Patriots offense, you know, looking at the depth that we do have and just the blue chip wide receivers in that room is Diggs, right? And so I think, yeah, let's go. Smells bad today. I love the optimism. I think this could be, maybe this is the 3rd season that he hits double digits, but we'll see.
Yeah. It would feel good tomorrow. Whenever that 10th touchdown was recorded, right? I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. We'll see what that connection is going to look like. And the Patriots are going to be vastly improved from where they were as a 4-win team a season ago. But that said, I also think that there's going to be some learning that happens throughout the course of the season, and that's just part of the equation. When you have a new regime in place, when you have depth that needs to be built and development that needs to happen on this team. The good news is we just get to keep chatting about it. So thanks for being with us here on Foxborough Rush today. For our producers and for Annabelle Hasselbeck, I'm Jade McCarthy. See you back here next week. Enjoy the weekend.